All right, folks. I wanted to switch gears and have another conversation, which is about, as much as we talk about all of these other things, there might be some semblance of justice happening with the latest conviction coming from the latest conviction of the Proud Boys. You know what that group is. That's the group that have shown their great support for former President Donald Trump, and one of the white supremacist groups that showed up on January the 6th and in some cases led the insurrection, that the storming of the Capitol. Well, four members of that group, the Proud Boys, been found guilty of seditious conspiracy by a jury in D.C. for their role to forcibly prevent the peaceful transfer of power from then President Donald Trump to Joe Biden after the 2020 election. According to the reports, folks, those four individuals, take a look at this. Take a look. Here are the four individuals that were convicted. Defendants Enrique Tarrio, who serves as the Proud Boys' longtime chairman, Ethan Nordean, Joseph Biggs, Zachary Rehl, and Dominic Pezzola. They faced a range of charges, including three separate conspiracy charges, obstructing the electoral vote, and tampering with evidence. Now, the guilty verdict marks the third time that prosecutors have secured convictions for seditious conspiracy in the Justice Department's historic prosecution of those who breached the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Here to talk to us about the implications of what this all means and how will it affect things moving forward, especially given the fact that former President Donald Trump is running again for office. Does that mean that these groups like the Proud Boys will be empowered, emboldened to make sure that this happens, or that there will be more violence, or there might be some more political violence against the United States government? We will have to see. Let me bring in my brother, who is going to join us for this part of the conversation, Brother Michael Imhotep. You see him on Roland Martin Unfiltered, but you also see him and can hear him on his show, the African History Network show that he has in Detroit, as well as online. And we're always happy to have my brother joining us. Brother Michael, good afternoon. Good to talk to you again, bro. How you feeling?
Hey, Farajii, I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You wanted to talk about this. What's the big part of this story? Because there have been a number of arrests related to January the 6th. But what is it about this?
Close to 1,000 arrests related to January 6th.
Yeah. Right. And I think that, and I'm bringing that up because, one, a lot of people don't believe that there was some sort of punishment. We hear that we, of course, we saw what happened, but then we don't always know, well, what's going on with that. And you're absolutely right. Close to 1,000 arrests have been made. But why did this story, why did the conviction of the Proud Boys stick out? What stuck out the most for you for this?
Well, it's taking place right now because the jury is still deliberating on 11 of the remaining counts. So this is a continuation. We know Oath Keepers were convicted of seditious conspiracy. Here you have 4 out of the 5 Proud Boys convicted. And then also you had they were convicted on 31 of 46 counts as well. So we're continuing to see the Department of Justice go after these people, not hold press conferences every day, but really speak speak in court. You've had over close to 1,000 or more people arrested. Actually, it was more than 1,000 people arrested. You've had I can't remember how many convictions, somewhere around 500 convictions or so. You've had guilty pleas. So all this is taking place right now, and there is accountability that's happening. And the Proud Boys are looked at as like enforcers of Donald Trump. Okay, they're looked at it as enforcers of Trump, and they're being held accountable as well. So what people, and now it's with Enrique Tarrio, who's the former chairman of the Proud Boys. He was convicted on seditious conspiracy as well, and he wasn't even there on January 6th. Okay, so now, because like when you read the article from the Washington Post today, Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, 3 others guilty of January 6th seditious conspiracy. So a lot of legal analysts are thinking that this gives special counsel Jack Smith an opportunity, gives him more footing, more leeway to go after Donald Trump, who was not at the Capitol on January 6th. But the allegations are that Trump incited these insurrectionists and sent them to the U.S. Capitol. He was at the White House watching it after the rally that they had at the White House. He was at the White House watching it and did nothing for 187 minutes. So it's always good when you see domestic terrorists held accountable, number one. And we need to pay attention to this. But also, if our vote didn't matter, why did they work so hard to try to invalidate 16.9 million African Americans' votes? Why did they were sent there to stop a constitutionally mandated bicameral, means both chambers of the legislative branch, the House and the Senate, a bicameral session of the legislative branch of the government to certify the 2020 presidential elections, to certify those Electoral College votes. So if our vote didn't matter, why did they try to overthrow the government to keep Trump in office and invalidate the votes of 16.9 million African Americans? So this is why understanding history, law, and politics and economics is so important. Okay, so we need to pay close attention to this and other investigations and trials that are taking place as well.
Let me ask you this, Brother Michael, before we take our next pause. Do you think that with these convictions, with these arrests, that it really puts a dent in the white supremacist, white nationalist groups from growing, from emerging? Like I said, President Trump, he talking about he planning to run again. So these
well, he is running again. He is running.
I mean, he's running again. So these groups are still in existence. Do you think
Sure.
that all of this stuff is still is it putting a dent on that movement?
I think what it's doing is showing that if you go out here and do this, we're going to find you. We're going to keep in mind, most of them were not arrested on January 6th. They were arrested afterward. The FBI hunted them down. You're going to be brought to justice. You're going to be prosecuted. Okay, you're going to lose your job. You may lose your house. You're going to be convicted. You're going to go to prison. You're going to get felonies. They're convicting them on. So when you go and look at these various convictions, people are convicted. One of the convictions today was on theft of government property. Okay, so it's now if you go look when Trump was indicted. Okay. When Trump was indicted on charges out of Manhattan, okay, Allen Bragg, District Attorney Allen Bragg, Trump was calling for his supporters to come out and protest. All right, there weren't a whole lot of protests. It was nothing like January 6th to come out and protest and support him. Okay, so even though you have like 63%, there's a poll that just came out. 63% of Republicans think that Joe Biden wasn't. Let me see. 63% believe. 63% of Republicans polled still believe that Biden did not legitimately win the 2020 election. 63%. Well, the number one news source for Republicans is Fox News. That's the number one news source, and Republicans are less likely to get their news from a variety of news sources, where Democrats are much more likely to get their news from, NBC, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, a variety of news sources. So when you have not the huge support that people thought were going to come out and support Donald Trump when he got indicted, what's taking place with those insurrectionists being prosecuted, being sentenced to prison, getting felony convictions, okay, losing their jobs, losing their homes, reputation ruined in many cases, that's a sign to them your white supremacy is not your superpower. You thought it was, but you're going to be held accountable.
Then we're going to take a pause right there because when we come forward, Brother Michael, I think that that is going to be the gaslight that will enrage some of these groups because of the history and the origin of what these groups originally stood for, which is not necessarily against black people. I mean, that was a part of their ideology. But from my understanding of like white militias, they have a problem with the United States government. They have a problem. They have a problem with the political structure and the system that we are in. So I think this is going to be very, very interesting. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward more with my brother Michael Imhotep, I would love to hear from you, crew. What are your thoughts about this as Proud Boys are being convicted? This is just another group of white militia, white nationalists who have supported Trump, who have gone through the criminal justice system, and now a conviction has been rendered. And as a result of that, do you think this is going to change the dynamic of hate and the dynamic of insurrection in this country? Join us in the conversation right now as we're streaming on YouTube and Facebook. And stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking about the conviction of the white supremacist group, the Proud Boys, and they have some of their leader and 4 of their members were convicted of seditious conspiracy, a charge that has been rendered with other groups involved in the January 6th storming of the Capitol. And we've been talking about this subject with my brother Michael Imhotep, who's given us his analysis and, more importantly, helping us to connect the dots on how we should see this conviction, this latest set of convictions for those who are involved in January 6th, and keeping that in mind for moving forward. Folks, I want you to join me in the conversation. I want to get your take on this, crew. Do you think that this situation here, what we're seeing with the Proud Boys and other folks who have been arrested, who have been convicted, do you think that this is going to create an even more emboldened stance for these groups who have a beef with the government? Not just about with black people and all of those things, but they do have an ideological beef with the government. Do you think that this is going to open up their ranks, add to their ranks, or do you think that this is going to be like a way to finally shut down on these militias? Brother Michael, you was making a point that, when we saw Trump being indicted in that Manhattan court, even though the media wanted to play it up as if, and I'm talking about some of the larger mainstream media wanted to play it up as if there was going to be just as many people storming the Manhattan court as we saw on the Capitol. That wasn't the case. That wasn't the case. Well, so do you feel like these folks, that these guys who are part of these militias and part of these groups, they are finally getting the message like, man, I mean, we could talk about white supremacy all day, but this government is going to bring the hammer down on us. Our lives will be destroyed. And I'm asking that, brother, because I remember watching one of the January 6th hearings, and I don't know this guy's name, but he was a former member. Right. Of I think he was a Proud Boy or something, or Oath Keeper. And he went up there looking like a child. Man, I lost my house, my job. I was crazy to even believe in Trump. And I remember this thinking to myself, cry me a river, bro. There was no way in the world. You tell me that you didn't think that on that day, on January the 6th, when all of you and your homeboys was like, come on, we're going to get it up in the Capitol. Oh, by the time you get up there, you see all the madness and chaos at the Capitol. You didn't think, you know what? I need to walk away from this because this might bite me in the ass in the next couple of days.
Well, the person that you're talking about, he talked about how he bought into the whole ideology of the Proud Boys. Things like this. It's important for people to understand. These white supremacist organizations prey on people who are ignorant. They prey on people who don't understand history. They prey on people who really don't understand law. They prey on people who never read and don't understand the U.S. Constitution. So, for instance, you have numerous footage of people there January 6th, and they're telling the police that we were invited here by the president of the United States, referring to Donald Trump. Okay.
Right.
Well, first of all, the U.S. Capitol is part of the legislative branch of the federal government. The president does not control the U.S. Capitol building, the House and the Senate. The president does not control the U.S. Capitol building. The White House is part of the executive branch of the federal government. The president controls the White House. The president of the United States cannot invite you to the U.S. Capitol building, just like the Speaker of the House of Representatives just can't up and invite you to the White House. Okay?
Michael, I gotta laugh, bro, because it makes absolute sense what you're talking about. It's just the fact that somebody would have go up in there and said, the president told us to meet him here.
Right. And Secret Service would not let Trump go to the U.S. Capitol because it was too dangerous. So he sits and watches the festivities at the White House. Now, something is important to understand. So we have three branches of the federal government: legislative branch, executive, and judicial branch. When the president holds his or her State of the Union address, typically the president will hold it in the chamber of the House of Representatives. Okay. The president has to get permission from the Speaker of the House of Representatives to hold the State of the Union address inside the House chamber, because the president does not control the House chamber. The Speaker of the House of Representatives controls it. Okay. So when Donald Trump gave his one of his State of the Union addresses in the House chamber, he had to get permission from Nancy Pelosi.
Right.
Okay. So this is why understanding the U.S. Constitution is so important. If a lot of those idiots, now you have some people, all they did was just trespass, which is a misdemeanor. They didn't destroy property. They weren't some of the domestic terrorists that assaulted 140 police officers. They didn't steal government property, anything like that. They were just dumb and just trespassed. Okay. If they read and understand the U.S. Constitution, it would have saved them a lot of trouble and they wouldn't have to deal with legal charges. All right. And then also, just for the sake of accuracy, I posted an article here from CNBC.com. Hopefully you could bring it up on the screen. This is from March 23rd, updated March 23rd, 2023. DOJ says at least 1,000 Trump supporters arrested for January 6th Capitol riot. And in the article, because I said you've had over 1,000 arrested. In the article, about 518 people have pleaded guilty to federal crimes so far, the DOJ said in an update marking 26 months since the riot. So what happens is bad news travels fast. And when these domestic terrorists are pleading guilty, they're getting felonies, they're going to prison, they're losing their rights, things like this. Bad news travels fast in the white supremacist network. So even though it may not change how they think, for a lot of them, it will change how they act, because they see accountability. They see, oh, they're going to come after me. I may walk away, but they're going to show up at my doorstep. They're going to arrest me. I'm going to lose my job, lose my family, lose my house, etc.
This is very
lose my freedom, possibly.
Official Sanika, you said, I pray that Black people wake up and realize that no amount of legislation will prevent people from disrespecting Black folks' humanity. Official Sanika, I pray the same thing too. Thank you so much for checking in. Lori, you said, didn't Trump say at all of his rallies that he loved the uneducated and ignorant? That's good. That's an interesting one right there. I don't know. And I'm going to ask my brother Michael, did Trump say that? Let's bring Brother Michael back into the frame here. Brother Michael, we're working on getting his sound. All right. We're working on getting his sound. That's an interesting one, Lori. I have not heard that one. So that would be very interesting. But it not only would be interesting, I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised. Look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue to have the conversation as we talk about the latest update around the issue of reparations and how the California Reparations Task Force has made another move trying to bring closer Black folks to reparations in the state of California. Stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. Brother, very quickly, let's talk about the work you're doing with the African History Network.
Yeah, so I teach online history classes, among other things. Online history classes Saturdays and Sundays. This Saturday and Sunday, we're offering free class sessions. Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade. It's a 12-week online class that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history, what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. All the sessions we do live, but they're archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them a year from now, 2 years from now. And then Sunday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I teach another class, Black Resistance Movements, from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement. We look at history chronologically from 1800 to 1968 to understand the laws and policies put in place that brought us to where we are today, to understand where we need to go from here. And you'll learn political self-defense and psychological self-defense as well, understanding our history and culture. So visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, and you can use both of these classes with your children as well. I would say the content is PG-13.
That's awesome. There it is, Brother Michael Imhotep. You can see him here on The Culture, as well as Roland Martin Unfiltered, here on the Black Star Network, one of our great scholars and researchers here. Thank you, Brother Michael. It's always a pleasure.
Hey, thanks, Farajii. All right,
absolutely.
Peace. Proud Boys who were found guilty of seditious conspiracy and some other counts when it came to the January 6th insurrection. Okay. There's an article from the Washington Post. This is from May 4th, 2023, Thursday, May 4th, 2023. Proud Boys Enrique Tarrio, 3 others guilty of January 6th seditious conspiracy. Guilty of January 6th seditious conspiracy. Prosecutors alleged defendants viewed themselves as Donald Trump's army. Prosecutors allege that defendants view themselves as Donald Trump's army, intent on keeping him in power through violence. Okay, this is from May 4th, 2023. Now, former Proud Boys chairman Enrique Tarrio and 3 other leaders of the far-right extremist group, the Proud Boys, were found guilty Thursday of seditious conspiracy in the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. A jury deliberated for 7 days in Washington, D.C. before Enrique Tarrio, 46 years old, 39, and other defendants were found guilty on 31 of 46 counts. Found guilty on 31 of 46 counts. The jury returned not guilty verdicts on 5 counts, including acquitting one member, Dominic Pezzola, of seditious conspiracy, and they were deadlocked on 10 other counts. Now, the result marked the 3rd decisive victory for the Department of Justice in 3 seditious conspiracy trials held after what it called a historic act of domestic terrorism, a historic act of domestic terrorism to prevent the peaceful transfer of power from Donald Trump to Joe Biden after the 2020 presidential election. Now, okay, so we have this article here. There's also one from all the news outlets reported on this. Is one from in the New York Times that I have as well. Okay, we're going to the clip here in just a minute, Doug. Now I'm going to pull up also the legal definition of seditious conspiracy as well. Now, you have a lot of legal experts who say that this can open the door for special counsel Jack Smith to go after Donald Trump, because Donald Trump wasn't at the U.S. Capitol building on January 6th. He was back at the White House. We know he did nothing for 187 minutes to stop the violence. All right. So they talk about that here in the article as well. If we scroll down, to the bottom of page 1, and it says legal analysts. Let me see, where is it? Legal analysts said the convictions on the historically rare and politically weighty crime of seditious conspiracy sent a necessary signal of deterrence, to anyone who might seek to repeat or draw inspiration from that day's violence. The verdict also could carry implications for the former president, for the traitor-in-chief Benedict Donald. Special counsel Jack Smith is investigating whether Donald Trump or those around him broke the law in seeking to hold on to power by fanning false and incendiary claims, just lying their behinds off, okay? By fanning false and incendiary claims that the election was stolen, pressuring state and federal officials to assist the effort, and sending thousands of supporters, and that's putting it lightly, sending thousands of supporters who heard him speak at the January 6th rally to march to the U.S. Capitol. After the verdict, Attorney General Merrick Garland spoke at the Justice Department and said the jury's decision made it clear, quote, that the Justice Department will do everything in its power to defend the American people and American democracy, end quote. Attorney General Merrick Garland noted that one of the country's largest criminal investigations ever has secured more than 600 convictions. It's actually the largest investigation the Department of Justice has ever embarked upon. There's been over 1,000 people arrested. There's been over more than 600 convictions. There's been about 516 guilty pleas. So we talked about this on Farajii Muhammad's show, The Culture, on Thursday, May 4th. Let's go to clip number 2, please, Doug. Pause it right there, Doug. All right, thanks. Pause it right there. Okay, now let's look quickly here at this article because we're coming up on the break now. This is the article that I mentioned when we came back from the break. This is the article that I mentioned from CNBC.com. DOJ says at least 1,000 Trump supporters arrested for January 6th Capitol riot. This is from March 6, 2023. That's what I could put my hands on right then, okay? At least 1,000. So it's been over 1,000 people arrested. And if we go look at this quickly here at this article, at least 1,000 people so far have been arrested on charges related to the January 6, 2021 insurrection. About 518 people have pleaded guilty to federal crimes so far, the DOJ said in an update marking 26 months since the riot. Okay, now it's probably closer to the 600 that Attorney General Merrick Garland said. This is from March. This is from March 6, 2023. Okay, so I cited this just to give a reference point. Around 1/3 of Capitol defendants have been charged with assaulting, resisting, or impeding police during the attack. The DOJ said about 420 defendants have already been adjudicated and sentenced for their criminal activity. Another 53 were found guilty at trials, the DOJ said. Now, this is as of March 6, 2023. Okay, when we come back from the break, we'll deal with how spanking African-American children is a holdover from slavery. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael.